Darling, we've had one hell of a time, but the question on everybody's mind, where is the
Welcome to welcome to podcasting with Matthew Rosenberg. Fuck, we were talking about Star Wars titles. I was trying to think of another Star Wars pun for a title.
Couldn't think of one fast enough. Star Wars. Couldn't think of the name of our podcast. Really National Park Wars. Podcast Wars. It also, I don't want to spoil anybody. It says Tyler's in shock right now. I don't want to spoil anybody.
This is awful. This is what you guys do every week?
What if we told you this is what we do for a living?
Holy shit.
Time.
I don't want to.
I guess anybody can do it.
Anybody can do it.
I don't want to spoil anything for you, Griffin. It also says the name or very close to the name of the show in the top corner of the screen. If you ever need to cheat, it has a little variation today. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Ideas Don't Bleed, a podcast. That's all we're saying about it today. It's I don't want to oversell it. Yeah. We're off to a bad start.
It's a podcast.
It's a podcast. We are three gentlemen. My name is Matthew Rosenberg. The two gentlemen who are deliriously giggling are Griffin Sheridan and Ethan S. Parker.
We're all gentlemen. Yeah.
Today we're all gentlemen. And for the next hour or 30-minute installments, we are gentlemen. And today is a very special day because we are joined by one of my favorite people in the whole world, my collaborator on many, many projects, Mr. Tyler Patrick Boss.
Yay!
Can I say your middle name, Tyler? Is that okay?
Yeah, it's in my email.
Oh, that's right. But I'm not going to give out your email on the show. That would be weird.
To figure out.
That's true.
Thank you, gentlemen. Gentlemen that I number among. Thank you for having me.
Yes. You don't have to be a gentleman. That only applies to us.
Oh, that's just you three.
Yeah, we're the gentlemen for today. You get to dealer's choice on it.
A couple days ago, I went out to dinner with my lovely wife Courtney and two of our friends. And
which friends? Say their names. Give them a boost on the show.
And their emails.
Jesse Goldsberry, or Goldsberry. He's the he's actually he's the producer of Velocipaster 2 now on Kickstarter.
Very good.
He also works. He works for Crunchyroll. Anyways, we went and saw Barbarian. Awesome movie.
I'm trying to not hear anything about it.
Yeah, and you shouldn't.
No
I saw nothing. I just went in and I had one of my favorite things I've seen in a long time. This is all a long way of saying. We went out to dinner and we're discussing the movie, and at the place we went to, they have it's a brewery, and they started doing they partnered with a whiskey, and so they're doing beer shots. But I don't like any of the beers that come with the shots. But my buddy Jesse, he did want one of those beers, and so we ordered that beer, and I was like, I'll take his shot, but then I can get the beer that I want. I'm trying to be frugal, and the waitress called me a fuzzball. So you guys can be gentlemen, and I'll be a fuzzball.
Okay.
What about your attempt to be frugal generated the fuzzball nickname?
I don't know. She didn't seem to like that I was trying to game the system and save $5.
Okay.
It was said not kindly.
Not kindly.
Yeah.
Kindly, we call that.
What is it motivate about fuzzball?
I don't know.
Were you wearing a fuzzy hat, fluffy jacket?
Did you shave recently? What happened?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know where it came from, but I've never been called a fuzzball as anything.
It's kind of cute.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
Right. Well.
We'll probably stick with that. That's probably your nickname from now on.
Okay.
We're gonna cut all that out because we don't talk about booze on the show. This is a straight edge podcast.
It's a straight edge podcast.
I'm the only straight edger here, but we just don't talk about it. We just don't.
You can only click clean or explicit for Apple Podcasts, and we clicked clean, so
we fucked up, and it's clean, and now we can't talk about most of the stuff we talk about on here.
Well, talk about clean living. Tyler Boss and I are about to have a kombucha podcast. It's happening right now.
Oh wow,
Tyler, what
the
flavor of GTs are you drinking today?
I exclusively drink the Gingerade.
It's a very good choice.
I've never had another one. I'm sort of one of those people where it's like I try something once, and if I get the one that I like, I just never want to fuck with it.
I think this is why me and Tyler are friends, because we both do this.
Yeah, well, we hamburgers, restaurants, our own friendship.
I got mad at Tyler last week because we went to a hamburger place and I was like, "You should get this hamburger. I've been here many times. It's good." And he was like, "No." And I was like, "No, trust me." And he was like, "I'm just gonna get the plain hamburger." And I was like, "No, this one's really good. You want it?" And he was like, "Sure, but no." And I got like, I was fine at the time, and then like an hour later, I was like, "Man, he should have fucking gotten that hamburger. He should have fucking listened to me."
Yeah,
like,
but see, this is where I want to start. You were trying to give me this bells and whistle hamburger from this spot. I know it's like what they're famous for. I want to see this place. If they're good at making hamburgers, then they need to murder making like just your basic.
I get it. I
like
have
that
the same
philosophy.
Look, that's my philosophy too, and you know that. But my point was that you and me share a palate. And so I have already gotten past the basic hamburger, and I like.
I trust you, but I haven't.
Apparently not. Apparently,
I trust you, but I need to do it. Look, when we go out for Ethiopian and Claire and Courtney have their weird vegetables, what are we doing? We're eating meat.
We're eating a big pile of meat.
We're eating the big thing of meats. I trust you then.
But yeah, it was a little hurtful, but we've moved past it.
You didn't even get a hamburger. You got a cheesesteak.
I got a cheesesteak because I got the hamburger the night before. And
then we went back the next day.
Then we went back and you got the cheesesteak again. And then you messed up because you know that I don't like it when you order the same thing as me first. I don't care if you order it second.
I ordered for you.
No, you ordered for you.
No, I ordered, and then you made a face. And then I turned to the waiter and I said to her, I was like, he's going to be really embarrassed because we're about to order the exact same thing, except for he's going to ask to have no onions on it. And then I turned to look at you and you looked embarrassed. And then
it wasn't embarrassment. I wasn't mad that you outed me to the waiter as being a weirdo. The waiter should know that. I was mad that I was hurt that you would order first, knowing that you were going to get the same thing as me.
Oh, okay.
You should be like, when you're getting the same thing, you should be like, Matt, you go first. And then you copy me. That's the proper etiquette.
That's the etiquette. Okay.
We should do more contentious food talk on the show. I like this.
Well, I was pretty mad about the kombucha talk.
Yeah.
I think that stuff's gross.
I think it's pretty good. I wish Tyler Boss would expand his horizons a little bit. There's other flavors of GTs. There's other brands.
Here's the thing: across brand, I stick with the Gingerade because that's how I know if I'm going to like the brand. I do the same shit with seltzer. Like with seltzer, I drink a lot of seltzer, and my favorite number one, Halls, can really only get in New York. Aggressive Bubble.
Okay.
But number two,
I'm not into an aggressive bubble. I like a mid-range bubble. Is
a Poland Spring then. The big bottle Poland Spring.
Absolutely.
That's a great one.
Okay.
But I always go with the same flavor because you want to know.
Yeah, it's smart.
I agree. I get it.
Fuzzball's smart. He knows what he's doing. But that doesn't
laugh it up, Fuzzball.
There you go. I stayed at a punk house once where someone had poured kombucha down the drain, like the creature, not the drink, and like the Dianoga-esque creature that floats in people's fucking houses, and I hate. And it grew in their septic tank.
Yeah, why would you do that? It's a living thing.
Yeah, it's a nightmare thing. But and they had to have their septic tank dug up and dealt with because there was like a giant 4-year-old kombucha living in their septic tank, and like that's all I think about when people drink kombucha is this punk house, which was not a pleasant place before I found this out.
Sure.
Oh my God.
All right, well, next book, fucking figure it out, Ethan. God damn, put it down in the notes.
Yeah, put it down.
I say we take all that stuff, we put that behind the paywall, and so the comic shit, whatever. This is like the bonus.
Well, we can restart because I figured out another Star Wars related podcast name.
Oh, you want to start clean?
You want to start the podcast again?
You could call it that bit from Revenge of the Sith where General Grievous says launch the escape pods, and then they do it, and then he hits all the buttons and stuff.
Yeah.
And you just do that, but it says podcasts instead of escape.
Launch the escape podcasts.
Which of the four of us does the best General Grievous impression?
That's a great question.
Okay. All four of us go at the same time. Okay. On go. 1, 2, 3, go.
I was really sure that no one was going to go, so I didn't go, and everybody did it. So I feel like I accidentally jerked myself there.
Yeah. Come on, Matthew Rosenberg.
I blew it.
Just hot shotted us or whatever.
All right. Well, I do actually have one more food thing for you, because you said go to New York, go to Two Bros Pizza.
Oh yeah.
No, I didn't say go to Two Bros Pizza.
You said go to Two Bros Pizza.
Was he fucking with you?
No.
That's what we're wondering, and that's what Donnie Cates said. We were like, Rosenberg said Two Bros, and he's like, he's fucking with you.
He's fucking with you. Yeah.
First of all, Two Bros is fine, but
it was fine.
But
you said they got the best buffalo chicken.
Oh, is that?
That is what you said.
Oh, guess what? It's on tape. I said go to Kiss My Slice on 40th and 8th, and that's the place by Midtown Comics. And that's why I said, someone in the chat said I go to Two Bros, and I said Two Bros is fine.
We're gonna have to check this.
Yeah, please do. I want you guys to cut it in, because I want you guys to have to edit shaming yourselves onto the podcast.
That's not gonna have the result you want. People are just going to hear you fucking with us.
No, I didn't. Look, I would very proudly fuck with you. I would be very happy if I did. I would be like, oh, you know what the best place is? It's the dumpster outside the Javits Center. That is the best.
Wasn't he raving about the buffalo chicken? He was
at Kiss My Slice.
No,
that's the good spot. Yes, you guys,
you're gaslighting us. Right?
We really had it in our heads.
Here's the thing.
We're gonna figure it out. Yes.
Of the three of us, I'm the person who lives here, and also the person who was sober. So I'm going to give me 2 points on this and say that you have to cut this out because we talked about drinking again. But I'm going to say that I'm probably right. And by probably, I'm definitely right.
Okay.
Also, I gave you, you texted me and I gave you 100 dinner options.
You did. And they were all, we didn't go to any of those. We went to Bandits.
The fuck is Bandits?
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
It was a neat little disco place. It was a little diner with a disco ball going and funk music playing. I was into it, and they had food at 2 a.m. for us on a Sunday.
You were literally on the block of the best falafel in New York, and I was like, go to Mamoon's, get the falafel.
Would they be open? Good. Would they be serving falafel at 2 a.m. on a Sunday?
Oh yeah, Mamoon's. Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
All right.
Is good.
Mamoon's good. The hot sauce.
We were in Two Bros. We were in the little disco place. We were like, "This is New York, baby."
I mean, I don't know. Maybe it is.
It was. I liked it. They poured a fucking strong old fashioned. Let me tell you that. Holy shit! I thought I wanted a drink, and then I took a sip of that.
Griffin, you're gonna have to cut this out.
What is the rule?
Fuck! What am I saying?
Also, I was really hoping that you were gonna go. They poured a fucking strong kombucha. I was
aggressive bubble.
A seltzered kombucha, aggressive bubble, large amoeba floating at the top of it.
Large.
Have we put a ribbon on all that stuff? Are we gonna talk comics now?
I was gonna say that Two Bros was not very good. We had to eat it cold because we walked all around the city with it first.
Yeah,
it comes cold.
They cook it cold. They pioneered the cold cooking process.
For anyone who goes to New York City, Two Bros is fine. It's not the place you go to get a slice. Two Bros is I need to put a piece of something in my body or I'm going to die. You have $2 in your pocket. You get 2 slices, and then you just load it up with as much salt, pepper, red pepper flakes, and Parmesan that they have on the counter. The Parmesan's always empty or one hard clump. But
one
still
Parmesan rock, yeah.
Yeah. But that's it's fine for that.
Yeah, that's got its own value.
Yeah.
I went out on Saturday night after New York Comic Con or during New York Comic Con. I went out with who'd I go with? It was Josh Williamson and Dan Waters and Ram V and Tom King, and we went out to go get some pizza. And I took them to a pizza place, and they were trying to go to a dollar slice place, and I was like, no. Absolutely not. This is my town. I'm gonna take you to a place that's decent.
And my town.
This is my town.
He's gonna.
I mean, two of those guys are British.
Oh.
Come on. And so I took them to a place, and we went inside, ordered, and then got a table, and they were like, I was like, hey, we should go to there's a park around the corner. Let's just get our slices to go and eat in the park. And they were all like, this is fine. And I was like, no, this place is super sketchy and it's 3 a.m. We should peace out and go to this park. It'll be nice. And they were like, nah, it's fine. Let's just sit here. And I was like, okay. And then 20 minutes into it, the two people sitting at the table next to us got louder and louder. And then one of them told the other that he was going to slit his throat. And it got real escalated. And some of the comic writers, I'm not going to snitch and name names, looked very uncomfortable. And I just sat there smiling and said, when the New Yorker says, hey, this place is sketchy, we shouldn't hang out here, about a place in New York, you should listen to him and like be like, okay, I'm going to go to the place because now you're scared. And like, I tried to prevent you guys from being scared. Not everyone was scared. So you guys can, the audience at home can guess which of those guys was scared and which of those guys was cool and collected.
We'll have a poll.
We'll have a poll. Who got scared by the attempted murder behind us at the pizza place at 3 a.m.? But yeah, it was nice. But you know what? It wasn't Two Bros. Two Bros are a sponsor of the podcast, by the way. Official sponsor.
Two Bros.
Two Bros. They're on most corners, it seems.
Two Bros. Why is it so cold?
Two Bros. Best eaten crusty after Donny Cates makes you walk around with it for an hour and a half.
Is there even no Two Bros on St. Mark's anymore? Like the original one, is that even there anymore?
I don't think so. I think that.
And now it's just all the ones on the fucking like.
Yeah, on the avenues.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey everybody, welcome to Ideas Don't Bleed.
Now this is podcasting.
What's the other one?
Launch the Escape
podcast.
Escape podcast feels real weird, but let's do it.
We're doing our best, Matthew.
Launch the Escape podcast. We're gonna start. I doubt we're gonna cut any of that.
No, not at all.
But we're gonna act like we are. My name is Matthew Rosenberg. I'm joined by Ethan. I'm joined by Griffin. I'm joined by Tyler Boss. Tyler, let's talk about you. That's why you're here.
We're like 3 intros deep. I love it.
Yeah. Tyler, do you have any thoughts about pizza or kombucha? No, Tyler.
No.
I want to talk to you about yourself for a little bit. Let's just give a general intro. Ask the boring questions first. How did you get your start in comics?
Ooh.
If you were my friend, you would know that. I feel
this isn't for me. I do know that.
How did I get my start? Complicated.
Is it?
Yeah, it's a weird one. Or maybe it's not weird. Maybe it's totally normal. I went to school for comics. I attended the School of Visual Arts in New York City. And while I was there, I worked at the comic book shop Forbidden Planet, where I met the host of this podcast, Matthew Rosenberg. We became friends.
Sure.
Fiends.
We became
because we took the same train ride home and we worked the same shift.
I think we became friends because we're both grumpy in the same way, not because of proximity, but you can whatever.
I don't know which one of those is better.
Yeah, they're both. Neither one makes us sound pleasant, but
so yeah, from there, me and Matt sort of made a friendship, and you and me, we made 4 kids together, and at the same time I was an assistant to Michael Lark on the Image book Lazarus as his background inker, and I was still working in comic shops and stuff, and then 4 kids came out and people seemed to like it, and now I can continue to draw comic books and write comic books.
I want to point out that you said that was a confusing story, or you said it was complicated. It seemed pretty straightforward.
It's pretty linear.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Have you thought about maybe chopping it up and then rearranging the pieces in what would
to make it more complicated? Yeah,
way to watch it.
Yeah, it should be like Memento. It should start with you making 4 kids.
Yeah, and then work backwards,
and then suddenly you're a child looking at a comic book. I don't remember how Memento
I like that. No,
I don't know. I watched the re-edit of Memento where it's all just in straight.
They just put it in order, and you're like, "This is a very good movie."
You can do that on the DVD. There's like a hidden password, and you can watch a version of it. It's not. It's a good movie. It works well that way. It's Christopher Nolan, very smart. I guess my question. Hot take. Yeah, look, coming in hot here. I guess my first question for you is: do you feel like going to SVA and going to art school? Do you feel like that changed what you wanted to do in comics, or the direction you wanted to go, or do you feel like that focused it? And then conversely, like, do you feel like working in a comic shop did the same? Because I feel like they're sort of different ends of the spectrum, because I know, you know, you had some very illustrious professors who are sort of on the more lit comic side, and then you're slinging Batman comic. Not that Forbidden Planet doesn't sell all kinds of comics, but you're slinging Batman comics. Like, do you feel like there was a pull there in one direction or the other?
Yeah, I think it is sort of an interesting thing where in school, you know, I didn't, coming out of SVA, minus my like final year, I didn't have a single comics page to show as like a portfolio, because I basically spent the first 3 years as a total incubator to just mess around, and I wasn't worried about developing a style or you know, having a certain look to the work. It was more just about learning as much about the medium and trying as many different things as possible. And then my senior year, my final project was basically the first issue of 4Kids. But in the school aspect of it, you know, my teachers were Klaus Janson and Dave Mazzucchelli and Gary Panner and all these sort of like storyteller and greats who were sort of like very experimental with the form. And that was my interest, was sort of the more you're drawn in quarterlies, your Fantagraphics, your indie bent or lit bent, as Matt said. But then, yeah, working at Forbidden Planet, you do have this whole commerce angle to it. And you start to realize where it's like, you know, there's a lot of people who have Koyama, or, you know, formerly Koyama books titles that were still working day jobs, because it's not as though drawing these comics was making them enough money to live off of, versus say somebody like Jeff Lemire, who is sort of straddling both areas, where he would have his indie book, but he also was, you know, this is what, 2012 or something. So he's writing Superboy. Or no, I guess we're going to New 52. So he's writing Animal Man and Frankenstein Agent of Shade, but he's also doing, you know, his weirder, more indie stuff.
Like Underwater Welders coming out.
Yeah. So it was interesting to sort of see all these different things, because I really thought I was just going to sort of work at a comic book shop and slowly crank away on an indie book. And hopefully, you know, that would come out someday, and great, I did my comic, and now I can die happy. And now not that my interest in the way I approach my work has changed as far as like on the page, but it's definitely, I'd say, working in the store and working with Matthew, and there's maybe more of a attentiveness to the market, as opposed to simply just making the exact comic I would want to make or something, if that makes sense.
So you, in some ways, you feel like your lineage is more of a like Fantagraphics drawn in quarterly type creator who's just happens to be in like the single issue comic world. Do you feel like that's accurate, or do you feel like that's where you are?
No, I mean, I think that's where I thought I was coming from, and that was definitely a lot of influences. Like, I think it's pretty obvious when you look at my stuff, you can see the Chris Ware, the Dan Klaus of it all, and it's not as though my stuff looks particularly mainstream, in the sense that, like, you know, I think a Marvel reader would be really bummed to pick up and read a Tyler Boss Marvel comic. But
I don't think that's. I think that's not true. I mean, some definitely would, but I don't think that's true. I think that your style is very. If you understand and appreciate comics, I think people would appreciate your work.
Yeah,
and not everybody who buys comics obviously does appreciate art on that level. But I think that.
But I think
you're selling yourself short.
Sure, I think, but it's also a weird thing of, I think that sort of like division of it's either Marvel, DC, or an indie is sort of kind of gone away in a lot of the, and it's because of people like Matt Kint and Jeff Lemire and Kyle Starks and Tilly Walden, where it's your readers are. They're sure, maybe they came in reading DC, Marvel, and then they picked up a few Image titles, and now they're picking up the Fantagraphics. But I feel like readers are just they're what's the word for it? I think they're hungry for any, you know, they just like comics. I don't think it's as hard lined of, well, I just read, you know, I'm the Marvel zombie, or I'm the person who only reads DC comics. It's kind of a thing where it's like pretty cross-pollinated.
Yeah, that was always a funny thing for me, when I always assumed that like I would do indie books, and then I would go do big 2 books, and then those people would follow me back to indie books, basically. That it was like a ladder. And it's really interesting, because like I did have that happen. I do have that happen. I'm very fortunate. But also I get just as many people who are like, I really love 4Kids Walking to a Bank, so I picked up Punisher, you know, like, or whatever. Like I picked up this, and I was like, oh, I never thought that it would flow that way. I sort of thought that like it would be more segregate. The superhero people would be more segregated, and people wouldn't check it out. And
I feel like that's a difference we've seen though, even over like I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Matt, but I feel like since we're working in a shop together and we could sort of see when Saga and Sex Criminals and it probably was the Fade Out. No, it's probably Fatale came out, and Ed Brubaker and Remender and were still working at Marvel. And then they transitioned into Image. Like we were working in a shop, and so we saw those people. Like we saw that transition happen, where like some people thought that was the roadmap as you go and you work at Marvel DC, so then you can go into your. And I think just the comics ecosystem is relative to say like television or movies so small. I think it moves quicker than say like larger industries like video games or movies or something. And so consumer relations to like the art or to the work shifts quicker. So you just see it's changed to what you're talking about, man, where it's like 4 years after Rick and Ed and Kelly Sue and these people did their version of it, the model has already changed.
No, I think that's definitely true. And I also think that there's a weird thing that is the audience just sort of, I don't feel like it, I think people in comic shops would disagree with me, but like, I feel like it just cycles out very quickly and you get a whole new audience. So like, it's not that people are learning new habits or having new influences or looking for new things. It's just totally new readers every few years. That it's like, I know that when I made We Can Never Go Home, and when we worked on We Can Never Go Home, there were people who were diehards for that book, and like they just don't seem to read. I don't hear from them anymore, and like I sort of was like, maybe they're not into my stuff, but I'm like, no, they're gone. And now people who found 4 Kids are like, or now that we make What's the First Place from here, we get a lot of people who are like, oh, I'm going to go check out 4 Kids Walk in a Bank. And I sort of assume like, well, of course you'd already checked it out because it's our book before. But it's like, no, it's a totally different audience. Like,
when you say they're gone, where do you think they went?
I think they all died.
Okay. no, but like, do you think that people just fade off of comics, or?
I think that some of the. Well, sorry, Matt. Do you?
No, you go.
My opinion of it is I think some of the people that you see that are diehards, the ones that you see like at cons and Twitter or like are very vocal on Twitter, these things, like I think they just get burnt out. I think they go so hard for it and spend, X amount of dollars on variants and going to cons and conventions and all these different things, where I think after like 4 years of it, you're just burnt and you're like, okay, I need a new hobby. I need a new thing to excite me.
I think there is a certain phases in people's lives also where they're like, I'm going to immerse myself in a thing completely. Yeah. And then they pull back and are like, I can love this thing casually now. And I think like, I remember having the realization, like, I think Mark Waid once said like, and I watched it among friends, like when I started making comics, a bunch of my friends were like, oh, I'm going to start reading comics and like getting back into it. Like they were lapsed comics readers. And I remember Mark Waid said once, like the average comics reader, like the average, I don't remember, I'm probably misquoting here, but he said something about like how the average comic reader reads like 10 trades a year or something. And like, we tend to think of everyone being like in the shop on Wednesday and buying all these books, but that's not true. And like to Mark Waid's point, he was like, the average reader reads like 10 books a year. So you have to make a compelling case that your comic is more interesting than Saga, The Walking Dead, Batman, Spider-Man, like, because that's a whole year for them. They just like, they pick up 2 Walking Dead trades, 2 Saga trades, Batman Killing Joke and Spider-Man Kraven's Last Hunt, and they're done for the year. You have to beat those books to like find that audience. That's the bulk of the audience. And I think it's true that like for a lot of people, they either are or they graduate to this idea of like, well, I read it the way I read novels. So like I'll read a couple novels and then I'll read a graphic novel. And like in that cycle, you're not reading like I read a graphic novel every night, but like I'm a lunatic. But like for a lot of people, they're like, I'm reading 5 a year. I'm reading 7 a year. And that I think some of them came from a time when they were reading more, but then they're not. I don't know. It's one to smarter people than us have to sort of crack, I guess. Yeah. But one of the things I'm sort of curious about for you, goes back to you saying, if you were my friend, you would know this. This is a good chance for me to ask you questions that I would never just call you, even though I talk to you on the phone pretty much every day. I would never call you and be like, hey, Tyler. So I'm trying to get some of those out of the way here.
Oh, okay.
Hey Tyler, you're a very you're an accomplished graphic designer. You've been nominated for 2 graphic design Eisners. You design my lovely newsletter and all the stuff we work on, and it's always sort of I always feel like a big chunk of my success in my career. It's funny because I say this a lot, that like the things I think when people are like, oh, like when people are like, what do you attribute your career to? Like I've worked with a lot of great artists, and I've worked with a lot of great, publishers and all these things, and gotten to work on a lot of great characters. But for me, I think the 2 biggest things in my career were Michael Walsh doing the cover for We Can Never Go Home 1, and it being, I was like, I want it striking, similar, bright, striking, simple, bright color, stark image that's easily recognizable. And then your cover for 4Kids Number 1, which I think is the same as just like this beautiful, elegant, standout cover. And I think that, it's the reason that I sort of am always like, yeah, Tyler, like I always try to get you to design more stuff for me, because like that's sort of the foot I want to put forward, is like your design aesthetic, I think is a huge part of my success in my career. But I also think it's a like how I want to represent myself. That was a long way to get to my question of like, you're a very accomplished designer. Do you feel like, I know that you wanted to make comics like most of your life. Where does the design come in? Like, does that come later? Does it satisfy the same itch? Is it something you wanted to do? Was it something you fell into? Where does that come from for you?
I mean, that's so in a basic sort of sense, like, all graphic design is just arranging shapes in a pleasing manner. Like that's the broad strokes idea of graphic design, right? It's how do we put a square, a triangle, and a circle on top of one another and have the human eye go, oh, I like that.
Mm-hmm. That sounds great.
And in a simpler sense, like that is also comic book storytelling. It's arranging shapes in a way that like the reader can understand, and we can follow panel to panel and setting up the math equations so that the storytelling works easily for a reader. And so that was sort of taught to me by Klaus at SVA. Sort of, you got to think, let's zoom out 1,000-foot view. We're just looking at squares and circles and triangles, and how do we arrange these things? And I never took a graphic design class or anything like that. I just sort of have an interest in it. I think it's neat as like a practice. There's a lot better designers than me, and I'm always sort of it's nice you say I've been nominated for those Eisners and stuff, Matt, but it kind of makes my skin crawl, because there's things where it's like, I bet you there's things that I do that I don't know are taboo, or not, they're just like quote unquote wrong, because sure. I don't know all of the quote unquote like rules, what you're supposed to be taught from the beginning. And so I think it's just having an interest in it, and trying to the stuff I make is the stuff that I like to look at. It's like, for instance, the 4Kids cover is very much coming from that like Saul Bass era of movie posters and that kind of vibe. And the Furthest Place, that one I think is fun, because it's like, I mean, we talked where it's the question, the title's asking a question, and every cover is sort of
the answer
to the question. I don't know, stuff like that I just think is fun, and it's like, it's just creative problem solving, right? It's kind of like I don't know, doing a Sudoku puzzle.
It's not, I don't know how to do graphic design, so I can't actually disagree with you on that, but that doesn't feel like it's like the same thing. But I guess I'll take your word for it.
It's the thing I always say to, where it's like the fun thing about there's always an answer, right? Like there's always what will
is
feel
that true?
Like
Do you feel like that's true?
For me, when I do it, I do, like, any problem that's brought to you, I feel like there is an answer, and you have all the tools, and it's just about like, it's like putting together like a fucking IKEA armoire. Like, you have all the pieces, and you just need to, like, there is a solution, but you keep, like, you'll figure it out.
So it's a real art form, is what you're saying. It's a real artistry. It's somewhere between a Sudoku puzzle and building an IKEA furniture graphic design. Okay.
That's interesting to hear. I've never heard an artist say that before, like kind of like allude to it being systematic in some way. That's really interesting to me because I'm not a visual thinker at all. And the idea that you could look at something like that and be like, okay, it's in here somewhere and I just have to get to it is really interesting to me.
It's weird. I don't think what I'm saying is weird, and you all seem weirded out by it. And I'm like sitting there, I'm
on the same page as you, Tyler. I get it. Don't worry.
Okay,
you're not alone.
I get it. I guess some of what I'm pushing back against is that like you're so utilitarian about like it's so just like, well, there's a right way to do this and there's a function and you just sort of push the pieces until it goes. And like that's not how it. I mean, one, I don't think. For people, like, I think you're very gifted visually. You understand things on a visual level. Like, you know how to put together a page better than almost anyone I've ever met. So, like, I feel like you're selling that idea short. But even if you're even removing that, I don't think that's how someone like me who doesn't work in a visual capacity, like, it just doesn't. It feels like you're either lying or ripping the curtain off like you're doing the Wizard of Oz, and it's like, oh, it's just a little dude is weird, like manipulating things. It's like
it's just a little dude is weird doing Sudoku puzzles while he also
is it that or are you lying?
Yeah, it's that.
Yeah. I don't know.
No,
but it's a thing, Matt. I think it's a thing. I think I can equate it to what, like, let's talk about you writing. But no, I think I can sort of do the same thing where it's like, it's, when I first started in comics, writing was a mystery to me, like the actual like craft and practice of it. Yeah. Like I didn't even understand what that meant. Like I'm a writer. I'm like, what does that mean? Like you sit down and like you page 1, panel 1, and you just go. And it's like, oh no, there's a whole bunch of other things that go into the process of like building out a story and dialogue and characters and all these things. And it was, I was so mystified by the process of it that I never wanted to like, when I was starting out, like didn't want to have anything to do with it because it just seemed too daunting. And I think over time you learn, everybody's different how they approach it, but you learn the craft of it, right? And so it's that same sort of idea where it's like I bring my dad's a ditch digger, as he likes to say, and like there's a right way and a wrong way to dig a ditch, and like you just learn how to dig that ditch. I don't know.
That makes a lot of sense to me, actually, that because I do think there's a lot of things where like when I talk to aspiring writers or young writers where I say things and I sort of catch myself being like, oh, I'm glossing over a lot of things that like are learned but become muscle memory as a writer. Like you just know, like, oh, I have to have this for page turns, I have to do this, I have to fit this here, like this needs to be this act structure, this needs to be this break. That I think, I have no idea how many comics I've written, but it's a few hundred, and like there are certain things that are innate, and like that doesn't mean I do them all the time or that I don't push back on them, but like yes, they just sort of lock in and I know them. And so, yeah, I think that's interesting. I've never thought about the visual world of it like that. But yeah, I guess what you do is not that hard. Okay.
That's interesting.
It's not. Yeah, anybody can do it.
I had sort of one more question, just sort of about your career stuff and
also, just lest for whatever reason, I have the utmost respect for actual graphic designers, not my like what. Proper, like that's what they do, the crap, like the so that's why I always feel so uncomfortable with the eyes thing, where it's like you should get my dumbass shit off the stage next to some of these real like people. For sure, I have a ton of respect for them. I have a ton of respect for people who work at IKEA and build furniture. All of it is great. No, I get, yeah, I think I get what you're saying. I think the audience, I hope the audience gets what you're saying. We'll vote on it after. Okay. Good. One more question and then we're going to move on, but I'm curious for you, and I sort of know the answer to this, but I kind of want to hear you say it. You don't do, I mean, like in your career you've done you did Four Kids Walk Into a Bank with me. Yep.
You've done an issue Department of the Truth with James Tynan.
Yep.
You did a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles story. We did a short together for Razor Blades. You've done a couple other anthology pieces. And now you did Dead Dog's Bite, which we're going to talk about. And now we're doing Furthest Place and the last podcast on the left stuff. You don't have a ton of work for hire in your resume. And I know you've been asked. You don't do a lot of cover work, and you don't do a lot of commissions. Like, you don't particularly like take on a lot of commissions. You're not like someone who is like, I have a week off, I want to do commissions, and hit me up. And you're not out there hunting to try and get variant cover work. Like, why is that? Why, like, you're sort of forging a path that's very different from most of the artists I know and work with. And like, where does that, why?
I mean, I think I've talked to you about this before. I could be, but I get, it's not to say that I don't like doing the odd cover. And I used to have fun doing with commissions, but I sort of lost the zeal for it when I I don't know, I lost the bug, and I didn't need to do it for like need to do it for money anymore. It's just that like I've been lucky enough that I've been able to be choosy with the kind of work I want to do, and the thing that gets me most excited is storytelling, and that's pages and doing pages of so whether it's drawing pages or writing pages, like that's the thing that gets me going. Not so much as like, the couple of, for instance, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle issue I did with Paul Aller, like that was specifically written for me. And so it was sort of like, I was able, they sort of let me, you can do what you want to do. Like, there's not going to be much pushback. All I want to do is be able to play with the page layout and like make this fun. The thing with James, like, obviously I'm friends with James and I love him, but the pitch he sort of gave me too was, he's like, it's this sort of story, and there's opportunities for you to sort of mess around here, like, and do your thing. And so like that appealed to me. Yeah, I'm just, I think working on something to work on it isn't enough for me. Like there needs to be like the opportunity for me to be able to do what I think I'm good at. And that's taking my time and sort of trying out different stuff. I just don't think that like working on a property drawing wise, like I would be I don't know that type of work allows for that, just because of scheduling and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, just your emotional investment too, I'm sure, is different.
Yeah, I mean, I take a lot of, and maybe this is like big-headed or whatever, but I like to have a lot of ownership over my work, and working on other people's IP, you're not super allowed that.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons.
It's weird that other people don't let you.
I just wanted to own Batman. I wanted 5% of Batman, and they said no.
That's weird.
So
5% is not a lot.
No,
like that's a boot or like a pouch.
How much do you think they're giving Chip?
Zdarsky ownership of Batman?
Yeah,
he gets 200% of Batman.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah, he owns all of Batman, and then owns Batman again.
It's troubling, the idea of what he's going to do with that money. I don't like.
Oh, they don't pay him.
Okay. He just gets to have a little plaque on his wall.
Little certificate. Yeah.
It's funny. I know you guys don't know. It's funny when people think that Chip is paid to make comics.
And that brings us to the end of part 1 of our discussion with Tyler Boss. While you're waiting on part 2, make sure you check out Dead Dog's Bite. Follow Tyler on Twitter @BoyCartoonist, and keep an eye on this very Ashcan Press Substack to see everything that Mr. Boss is working on. To get the latest episodes of this podcast, as well as news, giveaways, and even comics delivered straight to your inbox, go to ashcanpress.com and sign up for the newsletter. We'll be back next week for part 2 of our discussion, and in the meantime, you can write to us at ideasdon'tbleedpod@gmail.com, or tweet to Matthew Rosenberg @ashcanpress on Twitter, me @Tales2Astonish, or Griffin @GriffSheridan. We'll include some of your correspondence on the show, and we'd love to hear what you have to say. And big thanks to Summer People for our theme song, Where's the Poison? Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.